The movie starts when Frank, a skilled assassin, picks up a new gig to assassinate a billionaire. He immediately calls his team for a meeting, and as they meet together to plan the assassination of their new target, one of the team members, Davis, points out that the plan has no exit strategy if it fails, but Frank reassures him that the plan will never fail. Afterward, he instructs the team to book different airline tickets when traveling to the target's location. Meanwhile, in Washington, Ray, an ex-cop, gets visited by a policeman who reports his son's recent misbehavior. So later that day, as Ray tries to advise his son to turn a new leaf, the boy flares up and blames him for the death of his mother.
Just get it over with right now.
Not giving up, Ray joins the boy in playing basketball and convinces him to go camping as a way for them to bond together. At the same time, Frank and Davis meet up with their billionaire target and push him towards a moving car, causing his death. Afterward, he rents a house from a realtor, and that night, as he drives to carry out the next step of their plan, he informs his teammates that their first step has been successful. But as he continues driving to assassinate the next target, he ramps into a distracted driver, causing an accident that burns his car and leaves him unconscious. He's quickly rushed to the hospital, and as the doctors are about to operate on him, they find a gun in his clothes and immediately alert the police. As soon as Frank regains consciousness, he finds himself handcuffed to the hospital bed with the chief of police present to interrogate him. The chief points out that his ID details were fake, and after they ran his fingerprints in their database, they discovered he was a former government-trained assassin, now working as a freelancer. When the chiefs question Frank's reason for showing up in Washington, Frank refuses to answer. As the chief stands to leave, he informs Frank that 2 cops will guard his hospital room to prevent his escape. After leaving, the chief tells the 2 cops to keep watch until the next morning. The following day, an FBI agent visits an NSA officer to inform her about Frank's case. He tells her the higher-ups are interested in Frank's case since he was a former top-secret government agent. Upon hearing this, the NSA officer agrees to be involved in Frank's case. But after the FBI agent leaves, she immediately calls a higher-up named Miles and informs him that Frank's identity has been exposed. So Miles orders her to prevent the situation from escalating. Meanwhile, at the hospital, as a nurse checks up on Frank's wounds, he steals her phone to alert his teammates of his situation. The teammates begin to argue over whether to rescue him or leave him to the police. When Davis insists on abandoning Frank, the others remind him that the only way they can get paid is to find a way to rescue him. The next day, as the news reports on the assassination of the billionaire, Ray and his son prepare to eat breakfast before setting out for their camping trip. As they drive through a wilderness to get to their camping location, unknown to them, Frank is also being driven by the cops through the same lonely wilderness. After parking their car at the roadside, the father and son duo set out into the forest for camping. Meanwhile, as the police officers drive Frank through the road, they come across a huge truck blocking the path, so they pull the car to a stop. At the same time, a suspicious car following behind also pulls to a stop. One of the officers steps down to talk to the truck driver, but is suddenly shot dead. Chaos immediately breaks out, so Frank uses the opportunity to tackle the officer next to him. During the chaos, the police car suddenly veers off the high hill and falls into a river, but Frank and the officer continue to struggle with each other even while stuck in the car flooded with water. Seeing this, Frank's teammates set down the hill to help Frank. After struggling for a while, Frank successfully grabs the gun from the officer and shoots him. Then, he pulls the officer from the sinking car in order to take him to safety. At the same time, Ray and his son are passing through a bridge and see the 2 men trying to swim out of the water, so Ray rushes into the river to pull them out. Now saved, the officer immediately informs Ray that Frank is a prisoner and should be handcuffed. As Ray tries to take the handcuffs and gun, Frank begins to struggle with him, but his efforts are futile as Ray successfully snatches the gun. Unfortunately, the officer suddenly died from his gunshot wounds, leaving Ray confused. As he contemplates what to do with Frank, he instructs his son to call 911 while he points the gun at Frank.
Get your phone out of your backpack. Call 911 right now.
When his son informs him there's no service to make a phone call, he decides to take Frank to the highway, where there is service. But Frank tells him it's a bad idea, since his teammates are currently searching the forest to rescue him.
Ex-military, they'll be here soon.
Frank threatens to kill him and his son if they don't let him escape. Hearing this, the son tries to convince his father to let Frank escape.
He's right, let's just let him go. We've got the gun.
But the father insists on taking Frank to the highway. Due to the handcuff restricting him, Frank has no choice but to obey. So together, they leave the riverbank while the officer's body remains by the river. As they pass through the forest to the highway, Ray continues to check for service on his phone. Meanwhile, Frank's teammates find the dead body of the officer, so they wonder if Frank had drowned in the river. However, one of them finds 3 footprints by the riverside and concludes that 2 people must have taken Frank hostage. While this is happening, another set of police officers arrives at the location to salvage the situation. As the father-son duo walks along the forest, they see a road ahead with some officers. So Ray instructs his son to run up and call the officers' attention. As the son runs towards them, he suddenly sees one of the officers raising a gun to shoot another officer. He immediately realizes that the officers are not to be trusted, so he changes his mind and quickly runs back to his father to reveal that the officers are corrupt. Meanwhile, the officers contact Frank's teammates to ask for their progress in finding Frank. So, the teammates reveal they're currently tracking Frank's trail. As for Ray, as soon as he sees the corrupt officers ahead, he decides to climb a hill to get phone service, but he sights Frank's teammates coming down the hill. Confused about what to do, he decides to take Frank on another path in the forest. Meanwhile, the teammates encounter the corrupt officers and wonder how they missed Frank, even while following the trail. So they conclude that whoever is holding Frank hostage must have gone off trail.
You must have seen us.
With this in mind, they decide to track the new trail. But an argument suddenly breaks out between the corrupt officers and Davis, one of Frank's team members. After the argument, Davis proposes to follow them from behind with a vehicle, while the rest of them continue walking to track Frank's trail. As the team members closely follow the trails, Davis drives along in a vehicle. Suddenly, he pulls to a stop to call Miles, their overall leader. Miles instructs him to secretly assassinate Frank for $500,000. Hearing the amount, Davis agrees to the proposal. Meanwhile, as Ray and his son drag Frank deeper into the forest, it begins to rain and everywhere gets dark. But they don't give up. Frank tries to convince them to let him go, but they refuse. They eventually reach a hilltop, leading to a dead end. The son reassures the father that the hill isn't as high as it seems, but the father refuses to walk down the hill. After an argument over this, the father decides to give it a try. Seeing this, Frank convinces him it'll be difficult to walk down the hill with a handcuff, so Ray removes the cuff and they begin to walk down the steep hill. After a while, the team members arrive at the hilltop but find no one around. As they look down the hill, they're unable to see the trio climbing down due to the rainy and dark weather, so they decide to leave. Meanwhile, as the trio climbs down the hill, the son suddenly slips, causing him to scream in panic. Fortunately, Frank grabs hold of him, preventing him from falling down the hills. However, one of the team members hears the scream and calls the attention of the others. But since they don't see anything, they call it off as a bluff. Frank eventually saves the son from slipping and they get into a cave to rest for the night. As Ray tries to pull out something from his bag, Frank uses the opportunity to try to snatch the gun away. A fight ensues and the gun falls off to the side. Seeing his father being beaten up, the son immediately picks up the gun and points it at Frank, threatening to shoot. At the same time, a new set of police officers arrives at the river to pull out the sinking police car. A reporter also arrives at the scene to report on the situation. As for Frank, he's put on handcuffs again and given something to eat. On the other hand, as his team members take a rest in the forest, Davis catches up to them to ask for an update on Frank. When they tell him that Frank cannot be tracked, he insists that they don't give up on looking for him. Although the team members are shocked at his sudden enthusiasm to find Frank, they agree to continue their search in the morning.
Think I can pick up the trail in the morning.
That night, many FBI agents, including Miles and the NSA agent, arrive at the forest. They instruct the local officers at the scene to hand over the case to the FBI. The following morning, Ray wakes Frank and his son in order to begin their journey down the hill. At the same time, the team members also arrive at the top of the hill and sights the trio moving into the forest. While this is happening, the FBI agents stationed outside the forest send tons of choppers to survey the forest for any sightings of Frank. Seeing the choppers, the son tries to get its attention, but it doesn't work out, so they continue walking into the forest. At the same time, Frank's teammates continue to track them while also hiding from the choppers. As Ray takes Frank deeper into the forest, they stop to drink water and catch their breaths. Frank leans on a tree and begins to talk with Ray while also monitoring the gun on Ray's hand. He tries to buy more time at the location, but Ray sees through his intention and forces him to keep moving. While walking down the path, the son notices a couple taking a bath by the river, so they go to ask them for help with contacting the police. Upon hearing their story, the couple refuses to be involved in the matter.
You see the police, we'll tell them, I don't want to get involved with this.
However, Ray convinces him to join, so together they walk deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, as a chopper surveys the area, the pilots see two men in the forest waving for help. Before touching the ground to offer help, they inform the FBI.
False alarm. Just a couple of hikers.
Unknown to them, the two men are actually Frank's team members. As one of the pilots steps out to help, Davis draws out a knife to stab him, while the other team member fires at the other pilot in the chopper. Then, they raid the chopper to use it as a way to locate Frank. Meanwhile, Frank, Ray, and the new crew continue deep into the forest and encounter a moraine blocking the path. Fortunately, there's a bridge to cross to the other side. After walking over the bridge, Ray suddenly gets an idea, so he gives the gun to his son and instructs him to shoot Frank if he dares to move. Then, together with the traveling couple, he destroys the bridge to prevent Frank's team members from ever catching up with them. As soon as the bridge falls, they suddenly hear the sound of a chopper far away. Thinking it's the police, they begin to shout and wave to alert the chopper of their location. Unknown to them, the pilots driving the chopper are Davis and one of Frank's team members. Upon catching sight of Frank, Davis pulls out his gun and aims to kill him, but the chopper shakes, so he misses the target and shoots at one of the couple. Seeing this, Ray immediately pulls his son to take cover from the flying bullets, while Frank realizes that he's been betrayed by his members, so he rushes into the forest to escape them. After pulling his son to safety, Ray begins to chase after Frank. When the team members see this, they begin to shoot at both Frank and Ray. They pull the chopper to a stop and walk on foot to kill off the two men. One of the members comes across Ray in the forest and fires several shots at him. Thinking Ray's dead, the man draws close to him, but Ray suddenly gets up and kills him. Meanwhile, Frank sees his trusted team members in a chopper and runs towards them for rescue, but Ray begins to shoot at the chopper, preventing him from escaping. Then, Ray takes him into the forest to reunite with his son and the female couple. After taking a breather, they begin to walk deeper into the forest. Fortunately, they come across an abandoned house in the woods and rush in to look for any device to communicate with the cops. After searching the rooms, they find nothing, so they decide to spend the night there. Meanwhile, Frank's teammates continue to search for him, and after looking up the forest on the internet, they discover there's an abandoned house somewhere in the woods. Ray grows apprehensive in the abandoned house, so he gives his gun to Sandra, the female couple, and tells her to watch over Frank while he scouts the area. Seeing this, Frank persuades Ray to remove the handcuffs from his hands or risk being killed by his teammates. He offers to let Ray and his son live if they release him, but Ray rejects the offer. That night, as the FBI chopper surveys the area, Frank's teammates locate the abandoned house and immediately surround it, but Ray notices their movement and alerts the orders. Seeing this, one of the team members offers to spare their lives if they release Frank. Now back to a corner, Ray decides to let Frank go. As he removes the handcuff from Frank, one of Frank's men suddenly shows up inside the house and forcefully hits Ray's son with a gun. Ray becomes angry and beats the man to death. Seeing the chaos, the other members open fire at the abandoned house. The choppers surveying the area immediately notice the gunfire and fly over for a closer look. One of Frank's men pulls out a dagger and runs into the house to attack Ray. Seeing the fight between the two men, Sandra tries to help by shooting and killing the man. Meanwhile, Frank holds Ray's son captive and tries to escape from the abandoned house. Davis sights him and tries to kill him according to Miles' command, but the light from the chopper causes him to misfire. As the chopper lands beside the house, Frank escapes while holding Ray's son captive. The next day, the FBI rescues Ray and Sandra from the forest and promises to find Frank in order to save Ray's son. But later that day, the NSA agent calls Davis and criticizes him for failing to kill Frank. After he apologizes, she instructs him to find and kill both Frank and Ray's son. She also tells him to kill Ray in order to bury all their secrets. Back at home, as Ray watches the news, he hears a reporter talking about the assassination of a billionaire's son and announces that the billionaire's father would be attending the burial. Ray immediately pieces things together and realizes that Frank's second assassination target, after killing the billionaire's son, was to kill the billionaire's father. He tries to warn the local police of his suspicion, but they call it a bluff. Feeling frustrated, Ray decides to take matters into his own hands. He arrives at the billionaire's son's burial and scans the area for signs of Frank. And true to his suspicion, Frank is at the burial with a sniper gun aiming to kill the billionaire father. As he's about to pull the trigger, he hears footsteps behind and discovers that they belong to Ray. As Ray tries to beg for the release of his captive son, Davis suddenly shoots at them, but misses. This causes Frank to realize that Davis is out to kill him. So he quickly hides himself in the forest, slowly walks up behind Davis, and kills him. Now that Davis is dead, he aims his sniper to kill the billionaire father, but discovers that the burial is over and that the man has left. Feeling disappointed, Frank tries to stalk his target, but Ray intercepts him and begs for the release of his son. So Frank gives him the key to the hotel room, where the son is held captive. Ray immediately rushes over to the hostel with some police to find his son healthy and well. A few days later, as the NSA agent buys coffee from a shop, Frank suddenly walks up to her and warns her against killing Ray and his son. 2 weeks later, as Ray enjoys a barbecue party with his son and now girlfriend Sandra, he hears a radio report that the billionaire had died in a boating accident. Upon hearing this, he realizes that Frank had completed his second mission.